Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Krista Moore Show. It's my pleasure to have a guest in the audience today. And I wanted to just say that this show is brought to you by K Coaching and ID Growth as a new way to learn. I'm going to be interviewing an industry expert and thought leader, and we're going to learn different things from him in the next 30 minutes. So my guest today is Jim Reklis, and I'm thrilled to have you here, right here in the studio today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So I'm going to ask you to please give an introduction to the audience so they can get to know you a little bit more.
Okay. First of all, that last name is correct. It's Reklis.
Reklis.
It's not quite spelled the same way that it sounds, but it's been a fun name to live with for all the years I've been around. I am the owner and solopreneur of Reklis Coaching and Consulting. I do leadership coaching, leadership consulting for small businesses and inside of corporations that want that kind of infusion of help.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about why you chose this career path?
Well, I had a career in the past working in the nonprofit world, specifically in the church world, where I was allowed and given the opportunity to do a lot of leadership development, both in the local setting, in the regional setting of the United States, and also internationally. So I had an opportunity to begin training leaders, working with leaders, studying leadership for many, many years. And I got to a point where I realized, I think I'd like to concentrate on this and do this as my work.
Yeah, and create a business out of it.
Yeah.
Isn't it wonderful to be able to build a company out of what you love and what you're passionate about?
Yes.
And it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that with a lot of solo entrepreneurs, and it just seems like it's at that point in their careers when they really start to excel because they're doing what they love and love what they do. And I kind of saw that in you, Jim. The first time I heard you speak was at a conference of speakers. And I could just tell that you were passionate about the subject. You knew what you were talking about. You had a lot of relatable stories and experiences to share. And I particularly liked your methodology, which I think we've talked about it, calling it the 3 Ps of leadership, because it's a really clearly defined approach for how others can up-level their leadership skills.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that you could share that with us today, and maybe we kind of start at the beginning and, P
Absolutely.
number 1, and our audience can take notes. And I think that you could learn like a lifetime of learning in the next 30 minutes. So
yeah, well, let me start with a quote that I used in the presentation you heard, that everything rises and falls on leadership. And everyone has encountered leadership in different settings. And how good those leaders are determine your experience and usually the outcome for the organization as well. So I've spent my life being a leader, but also studying leadership. And so I've kind of realized it kind of distills down into these 3 areas. And I like to look at it as this way: on this journey of leadership, you're going to encounter intersections of these 3 things.
Well, and the one thing that I liked about it was easy to understand, and everyone knows how important strong leadership is in organizations. And like you, I've met a lot of great, amazing leaders, but at the same time, I think I've met an equal amount that didn't have the impact that they could have had on the organization and people. And sometimes we just don't know what we don't know.
Right.
So I liked your kind of simple intersection way of describing it. So why don't you start with the first one? What's the first key?
Well, I'm going to start with people, because I think one of the misunderstandings about leadership is that there are certain personalities that make good leaders. And I totally disagree with that. I want to debunk that mythology. I think different personalities create different types of leaders. So people who are very strong-willed, strongly motivated, strong with decision-making, they're needed in many situations. They're great leaders, but they aren't great leaders in other situations. So starting with people means starting with the leader as a person and finding out, well, who are they? what are they best at? How are they really shaped and designed to be a strong leader in the way that they're wired and not trying to be something else?
It's interesting that you describe it that way, because we often say that leadership is not a position or a title. It's like a set of, a course of actions and behavior. And there is a stereotype, perhaps, that a leader needs to be, strong and demanding, or and that's not what you're finding.
Right.
And it's okay not to be that way.
Yes. So I discovered that in my own journey is I'm not that kind of personality.
You're kidding.
I'm very relational, and I like to build relationship with people, and from that I have influence in their lives.
Yeah.
A person who's much stronger leader is going to have influence by their personality. People are going to respect them, maybe, or maybe in some instances be afraid, which isn't a good motivation in and of itself. So people, starting with people, and then
people, what I hear you say though is people, but the first person to look at is to self-assess and really understand what your current leadership style is. Is it working or not?
There's
working?
a natural leadership style we all have. So for me, I need to work on being more decisive, more deliberate sometimes, because I'm not naturally bent that way. So that's my challenge.
You discovered that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many leaders don't look inward first to do that self-assessment, to understand, what can they do better or different to have a greater impact on the results and on others. What do you recommend for a leader in terms of that kind of self-assessment, so to speak, or determining your strengths on that?
There are many assessments out there that tools that are available. Personality profiles, whether it's DISC, whether it's Myers-Briggs, many of them are out there. Many companies are starting to use those with their employees to help them understand what they're getting with their people. StrengthsFinder is a great tool. I use all of these in my coaching. So my coaching goes assessment, alignment, and action. That's my three phases of coaching with leaders, and it really helps them get a handle on who they are. So there's tons of tools out there. There's some great materials out there to help leaders.
What are your thoughts on like 360 assessments, or getting opinions from others, peers and family, and kind of, the whole person, and kind of like putting that mirror up?
I think you need it both. I think you need both. I think you need to become aware yourself, but then also some of your awareness is helped by seeing what others see. So I've been married 43 years this November.
Congratulations.
So I get this mirror in front of my face every day. It's called my wife, who helps me see myself more accurately than how I might see myself. So that's emotional intelligence, is how am I really coming across to people, and am I aware of that? And sometimes I'm not.
Is there anything else around the people P, other than looking at yourself, that you want to talk about?
Oh yes, I think a leader's primary job is to make people successful. And if they focus on people and the people potential that they have, they will see performance rise, not fall. I think people are the greatest asset of any organization that's there.
Yeah.
So developing those people, paying attention to those people, promoting those people is the best thing a leader can do.
Isn't that kind of ironic too? Because sometimes we think that a leader is way at the top and they're not approachable, or they don't even know my name, or it's like they have this perception that exists rather than reality, because they don't have that daily interaction. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, in larger corporations, businesses, or organizations, it's going to be hard for a leader to touch everybody. But I think that's where you build a culture that, whether it's the floor manager, the director, the vice president, they understand they need to be touching people, communicating with people, engage with people in a relational way that doesn't undercut their work, but it's going to heighten their work in that process.
You know, we were talking about the book Race to Amazing that just came out, and there's a lot of articles and things in there in terms of assessing your leadership style to put yourself on a path to continue to grow and learn and develop as a leader. But there's a concept that many of you have heard me speak and write about, which is shipbuilding. And that's what comes to mind when you're talking about people, is being intentional and proactive and working on those relationships and those partnerships that really matter.
Can I share a story with you?
Sure.
Recently I was meeting with a client who had just been put into a director position in a company. He had never been in a leadership role in a business. And he decided to go out into the shop area where their engineers and mechanics worked. And he himself was able to do the work that they were doing because he was very hands-on. And so he started talking to one of the mechanics, what they were working on, and they just got into this dialogue. And he listened to how he was doing it, and he shared, oh yeah, I've worked on that, and I started doing this. And after a while, this guy looked at him and said, you know, you're the first person from the office who's ever come out here and talked to me about my work. And it just hit him, wow. And what he was told by the CEO, that this person had always been kind of off in a corner during staff meetings. And now he was coming in,
stepping up,
and talking and engaging. And it was just that kind of attention.
Yeah.
Just paying attention, listening, really caring about.
That's a great example, and that's a terrific story. Why don't you share with us some of those traits, so to speak, that if a leader would engage in with their people and their employees, like what do their employees want from them? You know, what are they looking for?
Yeah, they want to be believed in. They want to they want their boss to believe the best about them. So if something doesn't happen well, they're not going to harp on them or jump on their case. They're going to actually say, all right, what didn't work well, and try to coach them into improvement.
Yes.
They want to know that failure is not fatal. Now, intentional failure could be, but if you try something and it doesn't work, that's not fatal. You still have a job. You're okay. They want to know that you're going to help them go beyond where they are. I think it's interesting that you hire people to do a certain job, but do you then say, and then we're going to go here, and then we're going to go there? I see your potential to actually do more than that.
Isn't that
or do
something?
You just let them sit there and say, all right, do that for the next 20 years?
Yeah.
If there's a pathway to growth, people are going to thrive and want to stay with you and continue working with you.
And that's the essence of the word leader, right? I mean, they're going from point A to point B, and somebody's going to guide you and take you along the way.
Right.
And that's not happening if you're put in a position and not further developed and not even spoken to, so to speak.
Right.
I was reading an article, it was a Harvard Business Review article that talked about what employees want, and some of those same things came up. It was they want to know that they care, that they can trust them. They want to know that they have their best interest in mind, and to make them feel like they belong to something bigger or greater than just themselves.
That comes to my second P.
Okay.
It's purpose.
And purpose.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a setup.
I think everybody envisions that they want to be part of something that's bigger than them. And so it could be the organization's business, like what it's producing. Like if I work for a hospital, I'm helping provide healthcare to people. That's a big purpose. You know, I had a thing happen with me. It was a heart situation that happened a couple of years ago. And I was overwhelmed with the amount of care and attention and precision that the medical people gave to me, that I was like, this is awesome. This is incredible. These people are here with knowing what they're to do and knowing how to do it, and empowered to do it in the setting that they were in.
And you could feel that.
Oh, totally felt it, yeah. So I think people want to have that sense of purpose. And the way I think leaders can help them is tie every job to the mission and vision of the business.
Company. So they know how they're connected to it and what impact they can have.
Yeah, whether you're in accounting or you're in sales or you're a graphic design person, it's like, how is that making a difference for what we do?
So do you see it as the purpose for the business, kind of the business why, or is it more the passion and purpose of the individual leader?
Well, I think they're going to be connected.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to work for someone who wasn't passionate about what the business mission was. So hopefully the leader is in a role and in a place where they really are passionate about what their company, their business is doing.
Yeah.
I think it could be.
When I think of purpose, I think when people discover their purpose, they're naturally passionate about that, and that comes through. So
Right.
Passion and purpose kind of go alongside each other for me.
In fact, I encourage people to look at their passions in order to maybe discover more fully their purpose.
Yeah. You know, Jack Welch has this quote that I recall, which is, effective leaders will create the vision, passionately own the vision. I think it was create the vision, clearly articulate the vision, passionately own the vision, and relentlessly drive it to completion.
Yeah.
And I love that definition of leadership because it covers those parts.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get people that feel believed in, they trust you, they instinctively want to be drawn into your vision and into your purpose. If you don't have that level of trust and commitment from them, it's going to be hard to really get them to fully engage in the mission that you're excited about. So this is that intersection that you need to see them working
people
together.
and the purpose. Yeah. You know, as you're describing some of this, I'm thinking of leaders that I've worked for over the years and trying to think, well, did they have that? Did I feel that? You know, and when I'm thinking about some of the most effective leaders or people that I would aspire to be like, they definitely understood me. I mean, they knew what motivated me. They knew what challenged me, and they would provide me an opportunity and almost like kind of take me under their wing a little bit. And but that does, you know, I trusted them. They showed that they cared. They had a personal concern. They made me feel like I was part of the bigger picture. I could clearly see all of that.
Yeah. And I would imagine, if we want to move to the third P,
sure,
that kind of attention drew you into their vision, but also accelerated your performance.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
so
leaders.
The third P is performance.
Is performance, yeah. So leaders who develop dynamic people with a compelling vision will produce or achieve higher performance.
Yeah.
It's an outcome. It's an outflow more than something you have to really strongly work on. We have to work on it still. It's not automatic, but the skids are kind of greased for you to go in that direction already.
So when we're thinking about performance, and again, it's back to, is it individual performance? Is it company, organizational performance? And I mean, I'm guessing that I'm answering my own question. It's all of the above. But how can a leader, I mean, that's a big job.
Yeah. Again, creating a culture where you're headed in the same direction. That's vision, purpose. But then the idea of accountability, team accountability, but also individual accountability. The highest performing teams have that sense of team accountability where they'll actually call each other on the carpet. We're working together on a project and I'm late on my part of the assignment. Well, it isn't just my problem, it's the team's problem now. And the team should speak up and say, hey, what happened? Do you need our help? Can you get it done by this time?
Yeah.
That's collaborative teamwork because you want to perform at your best. You know, sports is a great analogy to always pull from, but, you know, teams that want to win, they want to get their job done right, I can just picture a quarterback in a huddle with his front lineman who he's been sacked 3 times now. He's going to look at them and say, all right, guys, I need you.
Need you.
I need you now. Do your thing. This is not a time to take a break. Step up and do what you're supposed to be doing here. That's team accountability. You've probably heard, some quarterbacks will buy their best offensive linemen steak dinners, if they do a really great job.
Yeah.
There's a way to motivate.
Yeah.
There's a way to motivate the team to work well together and succeed together. And those are the kind of environments I think people want to be in. They don't want to be isolated in a little silo, being accountable for their little part of the work, and then did they perform well? It's like that sense of team accomplishment with individual effort is what I think what success is all about.
Well, and the leadership role in that makes me think about the importance of building more leaders and managing managers, leading leaders. Like it's a different level where you're really building that culture to have that same leadership style that has been effective, or that maybe you as the ultimate, leader of the organization has, whether that's hiring the right people, training and developing them or bringing them into the culture. But I would think in order to get that big job kind of disseminated throughout a large organization, it does start at the top, but there's that responsibility to lead and create and build the new breed of leaders.
You're absolutely right, Krista. We're talking about a culture of leadership development, or you can even just call it people development. Leadership can be very natural. So anybody can lead from the position they're in.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a title to lead. It helps. 5 levels of leadership. The first level is a position. But all that is an opportunity for you then to actually step up and lead. But even if you don't have a position of leadership, you can offer your ideas, you can offer your perspectives, you can step in and help where you know it's going to make the team successful. All of those things are leadership.
That's great stuff. So I'm curious, where did you learn, or who did you learn perhaps from your leadership style or the importance of leadership?
I'm like the unlikely leader is how I look at myself often. And a lot of it had to do with my teen years when I was really off sowing a lot of wild oats.
Living your last name?
Living my last name, Reklis, yes. And my dad was a very successful business person. He traveled a lot. So he wasn't around as much as he probably could have been or should have been. And so I was left to my own at times. And he and my mom, I think, became very concerned about the direction my life was taking when I was between my junior and senior year. And I would intentionally, on the weekends, come home late from my partying and the things I was involved in to avoid contact with them. So they'd be in bed and I'd just go in and go to bed myself. So one night in that summer between those years, school years, my dad was waiting up for me. And fortunately for me, he didn't stand there with a scowl on his head, angry, and yelling at me. He was confrontational with concern and care for me. And he said, "Jim, what are you doing? There's so much more to you than this." And he says, "I don't know everything that's going on, but I believe in you, and I believe that you could really turn around and do something." And that just really hit me strongly. And I didn't let him know right there, but I went upstairs and I started crying. It's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing to myself? And what am I putting my parents through? And it was the beginning of a real turnaround for me. And another point my dad did was in my college, second year of college, I was making some choices about direction for my life, and he wrote me a letter. I was away to school in another state, and at that time I was dating who now is my wife. And we had mailboxes back then. We didn't have email, so we actually had to go to the post office on campus get the letter and read it. But my dad had wrote me this letter, expressing his confidence in my decision making. He said, you know, you've been making great choices the last couple of years, and whether you do this or whether you do that, I'm confident you're going to be a success. And you know, I was sitting there reading it, and again, it's like, yeah, he believed in me, and he was speaking confidence over my life. So that's where I began to actually feel something internally happening in me that was all about, I can be successful.
Yeah.
I can do something with my life. I can actually do something. And I really wasn't leading anything at that time.
But you were a leader of your life. A lot of people don't realize that when we talk about leadership, it's not just leading a big company, you know, or leading hundreds of people.
Yeah.
It's leading, it could be, you know, leading your own life
Yeah.
and leading a family or a community. So to repeat, the 3 P's is people, purpose, and performance.
Correct. People, purpose, and performance.
And anything you want to add to any of those that we might have missed?
I would just say to anyone who's watching this, you are a leader in some version, some position, some sphere of influence with people. I want to inspire you, encourage you, challenge you to work at developing people. Give attention to them. Give them something that will elevate them and aspire them to be more than they are. And then give them a sense of purpose in what you're working with together. And then work together as a team and create something great. The world needs leaders who are going to help in every sphere of life to make the world better.
Yeah.
And you have that opportunity and that position to do that. So
it's a big responsibility, yeah, but an opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think is the future of leaders? I know there's so many changes that go on in business and society, and when things change, then we need to change or adapt to that. Do you see a shift happening or a change in how leadership is understood or approached?
I believe so. So much research and study has been done on leadership in the last 20 to 30 years. And I'm a millennial fan, okay? I know millennials from my generation get they get shot down a lot. Number one, I've got 3 of my youngest are millennials, the others are Gen Xers.
You have 6 children.
Yes.
I think that's worth mentioning. So you're leading a household for sure.
Yes, but I am excited about what's coming up. And I think what they envision leadership to be is more of this empowering kind of leadership. And I think if we go in that direction, which hopefully we will, I think we're in for some exciting days ahead. I think the other thing is just the nature of work has changed so dramatically and is continuing to do that. The information age, how we do work is just changing so rapidly that it takes a different kind of leadership style to lead people in those ways.
Yeah.
So I'm encouraged about the future. I think we've got a ways to go with making a good shift, but I think it's
interesting.
Motion.
You know, there's a lot of studies on leadership styles and generational differences and things, and there was originally, you know, seen as more the autocratic leader and then the democratic leader. And what would you name the next group of leaders?
I think visionary, purpose-filled leaders that want to gather people around that
collaborative
purpose.
Too, yeah.
So it's both that visionary and collaboration that I think are going to have the highest success.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I talk a lot about something called strategic passion, that you can have strategy, and in this case we're talking about leadership. That might be purpose, or it might be you know, kind of their why, so to speak. But the passion is what takes the strategy and makes it go into action.
It's rocket fuel.
That's the rocket fuel,
Yeah.
right? So you could have strategy But without passion, nothing happens.
Yeah.
But if you have passion, without those other two P's, nothing happens at all.
Exactly.
So that's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
I think that's what you were referring to initially when you were talking about how intertwined these are.
Mm-hmm.
They really play off of each other.
They are. They're like a rope that's tied around each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're not separate things. You might have to look at them separately to kind of analyze and figure out where you need to make some adjustments. But ideally, and I would just say the best leaders I know have done that successfully. They've
Mm-hmm.
taken purpose and people and performance, and they've got it working synergistically.
They've figured it out.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, great. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing all that with us.
My
I appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for having me.
I want to share your contact information, so anyone at home and in the audience wants to get in touch with you. I've heard you speak, and you own a stage, and you do a wonderful job there, and you also do a lot of coaching and consulting, and we share a lot of the same philosophies
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how we coach
Yeah.
leaders and sales leaders. So I would encourage anyone to reach out
Thank
to you
you.
that can.
Thank you.
Yeah. And best way to get a hold of you, or what would you say?
Yeah, honestly, if you're on LinkedIn, look up Jim Reklis, Reklis. There's not too many of us out there with that last name. You'll find me, and just invite me to connect with you. I'd love to meet you.
All right. So I'd like everyone to mark your calendar for the third Wednesday of every month. We're already scheduling the Krista Moore talk shows into 2019. We're sticking with that date and time, but we have an awful lot of guests that are coming in between. But we're going to try and stay to Wednesdays at 2 for 30 minutes. So mark that on your calendar, and that might be a way for you to continue to learn and develop as well. So next month, I have someone that you know, which is Lauren McGee.
Lauren's great.
And she's young. She's a millennial.
She is.
But she's, gosh, she's got so much wisdom and so much, she's like, I don't know, she doesn't seem like she's her age,
Yeah.
you know, well beyond her years. But I heard her speak, she's amazing, and she is a specialist and understands strength finders. So we're going to talk about this whole idea of discovering people's strengths and building upon them instead of always trying to fix weaknesses and the difference that that can make. So I look forward to that.
That's great.
It'll be a good one. So I
Krista?
want to, yeah, I got to promote the book.
She just has released her new book,
I gave you a signed copy.
Race to Amazing. You need to get it.
Yeah, and I think you're going to enjoy reading it. So much of what we're talking about is in there,
Yeah.
and it's really a guide to help you be an amazing leader. So
Yeah.
Good luck with all of that. Thank you so much, and thanks for joining us.
Needed to give you a plug.
Yeah, I almost forgot. I appreciate